Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Open Up with Therapy Girl. Join Shaneka each week for lively discussions on relationships, health, and finances that can transform your life. Visit therapygirl.net to learn more about Shaneka and how you can open up to live your best life. And now, your host, Shaneka McClarty, with today's show.
Hi, welcome. This is Shaneka, and today I'm joined by a wonderful couple, Gary and Mona Shriver, and they are co-founders of the Hope and Healing organization. Hello, Gary and Mona, welcome. Hi, Gary.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us, Shaneka.
Great. We had a pause there just for a second. Well, thank you for joining me today, and I'm really excited about this topic today, which is healing after infidelity. And I know so many couples have experienced the distrust and I would say infidelity, even if it's so many forms of infidelity. But I'm really excited to talk about this because I'm sure that so many people will be blessed by this conversation. But before we begin, I want you to share with us more about what the Hope and Healing Ministries does. You know, what do you do? What is the mission? And how do you serve couples?
Well, I guess I can get started here. So we have an hour? No. It's been our life's passion for many, many years, so we could just sit here and go on and on and on. But, we just wanted to thank you, Shaneka, for letting us to be on your show today, and thank you for the invite. Hope and Healing Ministries, I can just say, was born out of the infidelity that we had in our relationship. And I can go back and give you a little bit of details about that. And we're an open book there, so if there's any questions you might have about it, by all means ask. But I'll just kind of give you a quick little synopsis. In 1993, I came home and confessed to Mona that I'd been having an affair with a coworker. And that affair had gone on for several years, for 3 years. And to add insult to injury, not only was it a person that I worked with, but it was also one of Mona's best friends. And I can say that to, and again, if there's any questions you guys have about how that all began and everything else, I can certainly get into details if you have any questions. But just to rest assured, for the couples that are sitting out there right now that might be going through this, they know. And when I say that this began one of the longest and the most hardest and the most devastating things to our relation ever, and it wasn't that our relationship wasn't familiar with that. We have three kids that were kind of challenging. A couple of them really much more so than the norm, I think, and so we had turmoil in our house. So it was something that we were kind of used to. But I can tell you that the infidelity was by far the worst thing that ever happened to us, and we began a process of because we both wanted to make it through this. It was a decision that Mona had made early on in the thing that she wanted to, or we could try, to get through this. That's one thing you really don't know if you can or not. But she was willing to try, and I was certainly wanted to try to make this thing work. And which began a process, and it is a process. It's not just let's just forgive and move on and never talk about it again. No, this is a very traumatic thing that happened to our relationship, and it takes a long time to process through something like betrayal and infidelity. Well, anyway, one of the first things that showed up in our infidelity recovery was we just wanted to have another couple that we could sit across from and just have coffee with and talk about it that had made it through. That could tell us that it was worth it, and you can trust again, and you can have intimacy again, and you can have that love again. Those are all things that you're really questioning when you're going through infidelity recovery as to whether or not you can ever have those things. And but we had gone to our senior pastor, who a 1,000-plus congregation, who was assuring us and that we could make it through this, but he could find no one that would be willing to meet with us. I take that back. There was one woman that would have been willing to meet with Mona alone, and then when she went home and talked to her husband about it, it was, absolutely not. She didn't want to share anything like that. So we kind of thought, well, maybe they weren't all that healed. But anyway, we went on, and then we had a counselor who has since told us that he's worked with thousands of couples in the span of his career, and he could find no couple that was willing to come alongside and just be able to, offer us hope. And I remember back at that point, and I'm not hogging the conversation here. Sorry, I'll let Mona talk here in a minute, but I'm kind of setting the groundwork. I remember at that point in our recovery when I just kind of wondered where the body of Christ was in all of this. Where is that? We had wonderful counsel from our Christian counselor and our senior pastor, but just kind of wondering where the body was. And anyway, so we'd gone on. We didn't have a couple that we could meet with, but we were in counseling for a year, and then our counselor released us after a year on kind of an on-call basis. He thought we were stabilized and moving forward okay. And then it was about a year after that, I get a call one day from my counselor. And he asked me, he said, just checking in, see how we were doing. And then he said, did I remember the need that we had way back in the early stages to meet with another couple? And, I certainly did remember that. And then he asked, he said, well, are you guys ready to be that couple for someone else? And at that point in time, I understood why people said no, because it's hard, to go back there, and you don't want to tear the scabs off, and you don't want to, it's a hard road that you travel when you're coming through that. But Mona and I talked about this, and we prayed about it, and we really kind of, searched the Lord in this, and we knew that He was tapping us on the shoulder saying, were we going to be obedient to do that? And I can tell you, Shaneka, that was probably the best thing we ever did in our recovery, was to be able to just be open and honest and transparent with another couple, and he put us with another couple, and it was an awesome situation that we'd gone through by helping the other couple. The counselor noticed immediately that they were benefiting from this, and we were certainly benefiting from it by helping them as well. And then after a very short period of time, he started putting couples with us in kind of a support group setting scenario. And that's how Hope and Healing was born 15-plus years ago. And God has used it tremendously ever since.
Wow. That's an awesome testimony, because now I understand why you have called it Hope and Healing Ministry.
Right.
Because
right,
it is a ministry.
It is. Well, and we needed, when we were going through it, and plus this couple that the counselor put us with, they were fresher into the process, and none of us had a whole lot of hope. And what we wanted was for healed marriages. We didn't want to just stay together and endure. We wanted to have a marriage that had healed. We wanted to have a marriage that we were glad we saved. And so those were the two pivotal points that we looked at as couples, and that's where the name came from.
And in your opinion, Mona, what do you think couples need the most to begin this journey to heal after the infidelity?
To begin the journey, it's really pretty easy. Well, I shouldn't say easy, because nothing is easy about it.
The journey, yeah.
But there's two elements that we tell couples that all they need to begin the journey, and one is a willingness to try. Now, Gary said I was willing to try. I did not for 1 minute believe we could heal. I really didn't think we could. I really didn't think that we would ever have love and trust and respect and intimacy again. I thought it had been irreparably damaged. But I was willing to try, because the alternative was not to try. And I couldn't just walk away. So all it takes is a willingness to try. You don't have to believe it. And sometimes when couples begin the journey, if they have children, the only reason they're willing to try is for the children. I tell them that's a good enough reason to begin. That will not hold you through the entire process, and it certainly won't deliver a healthy marriage, but it is a good enough reason to begin the process. So a willingness to try is essential. And the second element that we tell couples they need to begin this process is complete, transparent honesty. And that's from both. That's from the person who was betrayed, to be totally honest about what they're thinking and feeling, and for the person who did the betraying, to be totally honest. That's really, really difficult for both. It sounds real easy, but it's not. And also, unfortunately, there are a lot of different opinions about what that honesty looks like, and some of them don't work in real life. So those are the two requirements that we tell couples they need to begin the process.
I think that is important, that you definitely have to want to make it work. You want to try and to be honest. Right. But I see so many couples, and I'm telling you, couples therapy is very difficult, especially when someone is hurting, because they're holding on to every moment and every, memory of this pain. I say that they're crucifying themselves over again, re-traumatizing themselves by wanting to know the details and wanting them to take them through everything that they did. And, what would you share with those couples? Because I don't even know sometimes.
Well, I'll tell you, and you have raised the question of the biggest controversy, and that is, what do you tell? And, here's where Hope and Healing stands after 15 years and sitting under the teaching of multiple experts. The betrayed person decides what they need to know, period. So if that's every detail, then that's every detail. Because detailed people need details to heal. That's part of their coping mechanism. And I know it looks like repeating the torture, but the reason to get the details is so you can understand what happened to you. Because infidelity is not just about the person who was unfaithful and their partner. They took their husband or wife with them. And that betrayed husband and wife needs to know what happened to me. It's very much like PTSD, Shaneka. They take them back through to help them deal with what happened so they can move on. It's also very comparable to the sudden traumatic death of someone you love. And it takes a long time to process those deep wounds and that deep emotion. And those details are an essential part of that.
Yeah, and the best way I've ever heard it described to me was by an offended spouse that was sitting there going, the whole thing was going on behind my back. I didn't know what was going on. And so all of a sudden now on this point in time when you came and you admitted to me, or they were caught or whatever, the whole history just changed. And so that person has no clue what happened. So now they have this puzzle of bits and pieces of information, and they're trying desperately to put this puzzle together. And if we don't allow the offended spouse to go there and ask the questions and get honest answers back, they have to put this history together. They have to put this puzzle together. And if we don't allow them to do that, that's like putting somebody in the room with the puzzle pieces and turning off the lights and saying, hey, go ahead, put the puzzle together. Well, they're not going to be able to do that. And they need so much to put that puzzle together in order to feel at ease that they're not being lied to any longer. And even though it's really hard to go there in these discussions and talk about things that you may not want to talk about, and I'm speaking now from the part of the infidel or the person that was the betrayer, my role in this whole thing, it's hard for me to go there. I don't want to hurt her anymore. I don't want to continue to do that. But once I started to realize that this was something that she needed to hear, and not just once. The thing that used to blow me away about it is we'd talk about something that was very difficult to talk about. She would go into a depression. A couple, 2 or 3 days later, she'd start to come out and everything else, and then we'd start to talk again, and then she'd go right back there and ask it again. And I'm thinking, why do we need to continue to go back there? It's because she needed to continue to go back there. And I really believe, and I am no therapist or a licensed counselor or anything like that, but I believe there's a sense of of desensitization that happened with her as she could continue to go there and hear the same answers and start to, be able to put together that puzzle. And then she could start to not necessarily relax in it, but she could start to believe in it. And then from there, her and I could, just start to, try to reassure her that these were terrible things that happened in our past, but I'm here, we're here, and let's, work through this.
It's really interesting, Shaneka, because this really is a huge controversy between pastoral counselors and licensed therapists, because many therapists have been told they don't need to go back there, and that's how they were trained. But what we see is that when a betrayed spouse is told, you cannot ask this question or I will not answer this question, it is divisive and it stops the healing right there.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like more deception, on the part of the betrayer. If they're sitting there saying, well, I don't think it's doing us any good to go back there and we're not going to talk about those details, then they're thinking, well, what else aren't you telling me? What else do I have? And how are you going to build a foundation on absolute, honest transparency, if you think that there is something else that they're holding back from you? What else don't I know? And we've just found that, if you can just go there and you can just, become, you can just go there and talk about it and just continue to talk about it, then they can start to believe that there's nothing else being held back.
If I can just add one more thing on this subject, Shaneka, I'm sorry. There's a new book out this year by Dr. Scott Haltzman. And he's a very reputable and recognized psychiatrist. And he ended up doing a lot of research because he was dealing with so much infidelity. And he was a keynote speaker at the American Association of Psychiatrists after he had done this research. And he stood before them and he said, here is my conclusion. The betrayed spouse can ask any question they want. The spouse who did the betraying answers every question. And he divided the room. Now, he was very highly respected and acclaimed, yet his peers went, we don't think we agree with you. So it is highly controversial. We can only tell you that we have not seen it work. We have not seen healing when those questions are not answered.
Now, we have seen couples that have used that information and were very guarded in what they answered and then moved on down the road. But we see them at group 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years later, and they haven't moved beyond the point where they stopped talking. And and who wants to go on with that? I mean, it really robs you of your intimacy. And so anyway, that's what we believe.
And I do agree with you in a sense, because you do need this level of transparency, and I do like that your point of the betrayed gets to decide what they need to know, and I also agree with you, Gary, when you said that you think maybe Mona's asking the questions over and over again, going through this, the depression, coming out of it, maybe a sense of desensitizing, and that does happen. We do know that happening with people. And that helps with just, really having some sense of normalcy and acceptance.
Exactly.
But the thing that, I know with some couples is the reason why I said that with the crucifying themselves is I think it's important for the person who was betrayed, like you said, they have to be willing to work on it.
Yes.
And also, I believe it has to be the position of their heart, because you can ask these questions over and over again, but it's how are you going to ask it to attack?
Absolutely.
Amen.
Yeah, there is. Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
That's what I'm seeing in counseling. It's almost like they're getting this information and it's attacking. They're turning
right.
Well, I think it's just them. I think it's them trying to hurt the offender back as much as they hurt them, and they're using that as kind of a weapon. And it's hard for a person, I believe. I mean, I wasn't in that position, but I think it was hard for Mona to not see that, I mean, as she was doing that. But I mean, that's where I leaned on a scripture: a gentle answer turns away wrath, because it would eventually, whenever she would start to hurt me back with her words, then I would get defensive, and then she would get defensive, and would both fold our arms.
Have to stop.
And we couldn't stop it. And it wasn't until I really kind of bought into the fact that a gentle answer turns away wrath was, it was hard for her to scream at a person that wasn't going to scream back.
Right. And we have to remember the point here is to heal. So if you're not making progress, then we need to reexamine why what you're doing isn't working. And I really think this is where hope and healing comes in, Shaneka, because a lot of times when you see that continued wounding, if you look back, you will see that very, very often the person who is unfaithful has been defensive or reluctant to answer the questions, or they have refused. And that's because as you heal, that wanting to attack goes away. It eases off slowly but surely as you heal from the deep, deep wound of the betrayal. And as you heal, you also realize that if your goal is a healthy marriage does not coexist where anyone is treating the other person with disrespect or unkindness. So to go forward, to heal, you both have that same goal. And, yeah, it's ugly and it's an awful road, but as you walk that road, you both learn to treat each other with kindness and respect, and you keep healing as the goal. And that's where couples that can come alongside and look them in the eyes and say, I understand your emotions here, but if the goal's healing, here are the things we've seen work, and here are the things that we've seen that don't work. And if they really want to heal, they'll try and focus on the things that work for healing.
And I love in the group scenario, too, is a person can know this logically, but they still just have this wrath in their heart, and they're so angry, and they just are lashing out. Mm-hmm. But when they see it happen in another couple, in a group, I'd like to have a dime for every time I heard somebody say, I could not hear my husband or wife say that, but boy, I sure heard it when XYZ over there across the room said it to their wife.
Right.
So it's really a great place to learn from other couples.
Right. Because if I talk to a betrayed spouse and all they want to do is demolish their husband or wife, they're not going to get any sympathy from me, because that's not going to accomplish healing.
No.
And if Gary talks to a spouse who's been unfaithful and all they want to do is justify why they don't have to talk about it, Gary's not going to help them in that endeavor. We're both going to try and give them some options that will produce the healing that they desire.
I really like the thought that you're giving and sharing, and I also like that you're working with these couples in a group, because there's power in a group. You're right. Because sometimes we have to step away from ourselves, and look at it from other people's perspective and experiences. And I like that you shared the thought that we have to have respect for a healthy marriage. I have these 4 principles that I share with my clients. I tell them that you need to have trust, support, patience, and respect. That has to be a foundation for a really healthy marriage. And it has to be both ways. But I'm also running into situations where couples they don't know how to communicate. They're afraid to open up. Even a person who was the betrayer, they're afraid to give, like you said, Gary, afraid to give the details.
Right.
There's fear there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is one of the secondary gains of this process, Shaneka, is because both of you are totally devastated. Both of you are just, you are beyond yourself usually in the depth of this pain. And so it's a wonderful learning opportunity. You're learning about things about your marriage. Now, we do tell couples, and this really helped me as a betrayed spouse, you're dealing with 2 separate issues. The one issue is the infidelity. The person who is unfaithful made a unilateral choice to be unfaithful. I don't care how awful their husband or wife was. There is no reason good enough to justify being unfaithful. They had lots of other choices. They could have gone to their husband or wife and said, hey, we have a big problem, we need to heal. But choosing to deal with whatever's going on by having an affair is just wrong, and it's their complete responsibility. However, they brought it into the marriage. Now you both have to heal from it. But the second issue you deal with as a couple is the marriage itself, and this is where you both have equal responsibility. Now, that's really hard for a betrayed spouse to hear because they hear, or I can tell you what I heard any time the marriage was mentioned was, oh, that's why Gary had an affair, because I was a lousy wife. And that was not true. But we did have to look at our marriage, and this is where, like you said, the communication issues, whatever was going on in the marriage, because every marriage has issues. Nobody has a perfect marriage. And so this is an opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Gary and I don't have a perfect marriage now. We're,
what?
You know, we didn't get a lobotomy, you know.
Really?
But we sure have a much healthier way of dealing with the issues we face, of dealing with the conflict. Not that we don't have issues or conflict, we do, but we're much better at dealing with it so that it doesn't build up and those wounds don't thicken.
Yeah, if I could jump in here for just a second. Shaneka, you said something earlier where you talked about the offending partner or the person that, you know, that had the affair. Is there's a lot of fear there to talk about these things. Because, and I totally agree with you. It's like I felt like that our relationship was hanging by a thread, and if I am so afraid to go there and talk about those things only because, you know, she's going to bolt or she's going to kick me out or you know, we're just not going to work. And so the temptation is to just, okay, choose every word very carefully and you know what I mean, try to hold, you know, keep them at arm's length. And all I can tell you that if a person is sitting in that situation, it's not going to play out well, only because it's construed as more deception. I mean, the antenna of the betrayed spouse is just up, and they are hypersensitive to every little thing. And so that's when I say, you know, I mean, I just found with myself, I can't be in damage control and watch everything that I do from this fear because she needs these answers. She needs these answers to heal. And it wasn't until I said, I want to heal, I am here for you, I will do anything I can, and do we really need to talk about that? You know, because I'm just so afraid that this is going to hurt you that much more. Sometimes she would listen, and she would say, you know, like, well, I don't know, maybe not. But I can tell you, if she thought that this was going to be the only time we'd ever talk about it, she'd want to hear about it.
Right.
But I had to set the stage with her that it's an open book. I am here for you. I will do anything that I can. We will go there, but we don't necessarily have to go there today. And I don't know. It just seemed like once I got really open and it was all about empathy and compassion that I had for her instead of me trying to protect myself.
Or his partner.
Yeah, that's when things started to really break loose. That's
yes.
when I think that she could really feel safe again. And you got to agree that until Mona started feeling safe again, you know, I mean, the jury's out, and that just needs to be the primary goal here. And is we both have to feel safe in the relationship. And we both have to feel safe to be able to talk. Because that's my personality trait. I'm a peace at any price kind of guy, and I will do anything at all. I'm a conflict avoider, and so whenever, you know, a conflict would come up, it was just how I was hardwired, was just, you know, avoid it at any price. And I can't do that. That was something that absolutely changed in our relationship after the infidelity, was I know I need to have courageous conversations that are very, very hard for me to do in the way that I'm wired, but I have to do that in order for us to have a healthy relationship, because she deserves the truth. And it may not be something she really wants to hear either, but it's something that we together have decided that, no, the intimacy in our relationship and the transparency in our relationship is the most important thing. And we have to go there, even if it is uncomfortable. So.
And I honestly don't think, now we're 20 years post-infidelity. I honestly don't know.
And we haven't killed each other yet. No,
I do not know, Shaneka, if we would ever talk about it if we're not in this ministry.
Right, exactly.
I know what I need to know. I've dealt with it. We've worked it all through. We've healed. I have no need to go there on a personal level with Gary at all. and never have for many, many years. But I'll tell you one thing. I have the freedom to go there anytime I want to. In fact, you think after 20 years of letters and couples, you've heard everything. Well, every once in a while somebody will surprise you, right? And I got a letter one day, and it raised a question that I had never asked Gary, and I don't even remember what it was now. So I dealt with the letter, and I walked into Gary's office, and I said, you know what, got a question. He said, okay, what is it? I asked him the question. He looked at me kind of funny, and he said, okay, here's the answer. I went, okay, thanks, walked away. That was the end of it. See, because the pain is gone because we healed. And I know that I can go to Gary with anything, anytime, and he knows he can come to me with anything, anytime, even if it's going to be uncomfortable. But we do not deal with infidelity every day for the rest of our lives. No. Not at all. That is a healed subject. Yes, it happened. It's sorrowful, just like if you had lost a child.
Right.
It happened. It was a sad time, but we are healed.
Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a great point to bring up for couples that may be in the middle of it right now, because you don't believe that you're going to have this intimacy and love and respect and all the things that go with a healthy marriage, or you question that. And that was one of the things that, as Mona and I were going through that, and she made that comment about it's like losing a loved one. Well, I think that's so important, because I think that some counsel that couples will get will be, okay, it's time to just forgive. They've admitted to this. Now we're just going to move on, and we're not going to talk about it anymore. Well, if they're relating this to like the death of a child, how in the world would you ever, after you lost Johnny, be able to say, okay, we're just going to not talk about it anymore. We're just going to forget about it, and we're just going to move on. You can't do that. You have to go, you have to visit that. You have to mourn that loss. And that's exactly what we're going through here. So, but again, to underscore what Mona had said earlier is, here we are 20 years later, and I know that people are saying 20 years, oh my goodness, we're just trying to get through 2 months, So we get it, but it's like you have good days, you have bad days, but once you get through this thing, and once you process through this, it just becomes, it's something you'll never forget, because you can't forget something that was that traumatic in your life. But what you can do is it just becomes like a scar. If you get a cut, it hurts, but it heals after a while. And every time you look at that scar, it's still a scar. But still, it's just a sad memory. It's just something that we went through. It's part of your life. It's just part of your life. That's right.
And I truly embrace what you're saying about the truth. I believe that when you honor yourself, when you're truthful with just yourself, you automatically honor the relationship. Because you do that from faith and not fear. You're not operating in fear. And I want to hear your response towards, someone who, I've had several people, and even I had a Facebook comment, but I've also had people to sit on my couch and say that I want you to call her. I want to hear you say it's over, or I'm going to call her, or they share with me they've called the other woman, and I'm not desensitized to it, but sometimes I want to say, don't bring her into it because you're trying to work it out, but I know she's already in it. But what is your response to the person who is hurting, wanting to talk to the other person and to hear the spouse talk?
Right. Well, very, very often it's part of the process of ending that illicit relationship, where the unfaithful person needs to communicate either an email, a phone call, to say, Mona's standing here next to me. I've confessed everything. We're going to work on our marriage. Please do not contact me again. And there are many therapists who do recommend that be done in the presence of the betrayed spouse. That seems to help with the separation of that relationship. Now, beyond that, contacting the other person, there are many reasons not to. For one of the biggest reasons not to, and I certainly don't encourage betrayed spouses to call the partner. the affair partner, because basically what's probably going to happen is you're going to call the affair partner and they're going to hang up from you and call your spouse and say, get your crazy husband or wife off my back. So you're reconnecting them, which is something you don't want to accomplish. The other thing is, and this is always amazing to me, but betrayed spouses think, well, I'll get the truth from the affair partner because I don't think I'm getting it from my husband or wife. Why would we think that the affair partner would be any more truthful? They lie too. So you're not comparing apples to oranges. Now, there are some exceptions, obviously. Gary's affair partner was my close friend. She had also betrayed me on a personal level, so we needed to deal with that relationship. Some people, it's relatives, and there are going to be things that need to be handled. So there's no absolute here, Shaneka, but when somebody approaches us and says, I want to contact, I always say explore your motives. Why do you feel the need to contact? Because if you're wanting to contact to make doggone sure they hurt as bad as you do, I can tell you it's probably not going to work. If you're wanting to contact because you think they'll tell you the truth, I can tell you that you can't trust their truth any more than you can trust your husband's or wife. So, and if you're just wanting to hurt them more and more, they'll never hurt enough for you. You'll never get there and go, oh, okay, finally they get it and they know what a bad thing they did. That just doesn't seem to pan out. So it's something to think about and talk about. There is some validity to it in the beginning, at the end of the affair when it's ending. But down the road, there's not a lot of good reasons. Does that help?
I want to throw just something in there, just real quick. I think that, number one, whenever you get the affair partner into the mix, you're giving them way too much power.
Yeah.
You need to start thinking about the couple. It's like us,
the married,
us, Mona and I. What is the motive behind this going to feed us? Is it going to help Mona and I as a couple recover? You know. And I know that I've talked to affair partners that have, compassion and empathy for their partner. They're thinking, well, I went and cheated on that person, and now we got to protect that other person. No, let God help them. You need to work on your marriage and what is going to help you guys as a couple to get through this, and don't give that affair partner any more power, especially if you're going to call them expecting to get truth from them, because they may have feelings for your husband or wife, and they may want to blow up your marriage. So they might just sit there and lie to you 6 ways to Sunday and cause all kinds of strife in your relationship that isn't there now, so be careful if you're going to call them. But again, I think that if that is what needs to happen in order for the relationship to continue into reconciliation, then I think that, it's something that you need to talk about and set it up, set up the rules and how are we going to do this and what's it going to do. And I think that would be a great thing to bring to you too,
Right.
As their therapist, to be able to help them, give them thoughts to bounce off of and really weigh those motives. Because if we're looking to just hurt them, that's never going to work. You'll never hurt them enough, So.
Yes, it'll be a continued cycle of just,
Yes,
wanting
exactly.
to get back at the person. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
want to also add to anyone who's listening or that will download this later that, I've been married for going on 11 years, and there's a difference between privacy and secrecy.
Absolutely.
And, when you're private, like I tell people, my husband knows I'm a private person. Anything that I'm private about, even if I share it or someone finds out about it, it will not emotionally hurt my husband. You can be private about, things that you want to do, things that your goals, your projects you're working on, trips that you want to take, your finances. But when you're secretive, that information, if your spouse finds out, will emotionally hurt them.
Yep.
That's
right.
the difference between privacy and secrecy. So it's okay to be private, but secrecy, that is not healthy in a relationship. And I tell couples that all the time. You have to understand that there's a fine line there, and you can't be secret about. You have to understand the difference between privacy and secrecy.
I'll tell you what.
But
sorry.
Go ahead, Mona.
I was just going to tell you what Dr. Haltzman says, because I agree with you completely. And he says that being transparent means giving your husband or wife complete access to your communications and your connections. But it doesn't mean that they have access to all your thoughts. They're yours. And he uses the example of you watch your kid play soccer one day, and quite frankly, he plays lousy and his heart wasn't in it. You don't share every thought with that child that you had watching the game, because some of it is just not necessary. But what you do, your actions, should be an open book. Mm-hmm. That's where the transparency comes in. Your actions should always be an open book, but not every thought has to be an open book.
Yeah, I love your point about privacy versus, secrecy.
Yes.
I've always believed that secrecy, any kind of secrets in a relationship, are a danger sign.
Yeah.
There's something going on, if you need to keep this a secret. And then also, too, I absolutely believe that secrets rob us of the intimacy that we have with our spouse, because it's always something between us. It's always something I would be protecting, or it's something that I got to be careful about that. Because I really believe that the perfect relationship with us, and I know that there would be people who think, boy, you're an idiot, and more than one person said that. No, but I think that the perfect relationship that Mona and I would have, in my heart, is in the brain out the mouth. I like to be so transparent that I don't have to think about anything. It's just I'm sharing my heart with every word that I'm saying. And I think that that's something we can achieve. I think it's something that I enjoy, and obviously too. There's
not every thought.
Not every thought. You have your privacy, but I like to be able to, as we are talking, as we are exchanging, I don't have to think about anything.
Right.
And I don't know. It's so freeing to know that when your cell phone rings or you get a text or something like that, if there's any kind of secret, you're going, I got to get to the phone. No, you pick up the phone, honey. I don't know what it is. I have nothing to hide. Dr. Phil said it best: those who have nothing to hide nothing. I always like that. Yeah.
And I agree with you, because I truly believe that transparency also fosters this emotional intimacy. So
Amen.
when you say you're just free. Yeah, it is freeing, because you're not bound by anything. It's not just a physical intimacy that we need in our relationships, but also the emotional intimacy.
Absolutely.
And Gary, I know that there are so many faces to infidelity. I have a Facebook comment. He said that he didn't kiss her. He said that he was just, they just talked on the phone. But this spouse considers that cheating, but I guess the husband doesn't. But share. If you agree with me, but share with me the different phases of infidelity, because it's not always the sexual infidelity.
Yeah, well, that is one thing that we have said from the get-go, and I think that early on we made the mistake of saying that, well, if an affair didn't go physical, then it wasn't quite as bad, or it wasn't quite as as dark or whatever. And sure, when it does go physical, there are other things, the other consequences that can come from that affair. We understand that. There can be, pregnancies, there can be STDs and things like that that can come into the play. But betrayal is betrayal. And that was one thing that we really learned is when you're sitting across from someone that has betrayed you, whether or not you kissed them, whether or not you had sex with them, whether or not whatever, you lied, your secrets, and that cuts deeper than anything else, if you truly believed in that person. And so we've seen this a lot inside the church, too, where they would say, well, John was, tempted by another, relationship, but boy, he didn't have sex with her, so, pat John on the back, and, John, you didn't do it, and praise God that you didn't do that, and he's our hero now, right? Well, yeah, thank you for not going too far, John. But please, Mary has been betrayed here. And Mary's sitting back there going, why do I feel like I'm going crazy here? Because he didn't do anything. Yes, he did. He betrayed her, and she needs to have permission to go there because she was betrayed, and they need to work on this. And so I can't scream loud enough that emotional affairs are affairs nonetheless. And the betrayed spouse needs to have permission needs to visit that, needs to have some understanding in what happened, because, yeah, they did. So if I sound passionate, I am.
Yeah, we borrow from Dr. Shirley Glass, who was a recognized expert in infidelity and did some of the best research available. And she identified 3 components, and one, Gary pointed out, was secrecy. And it's not necessarily that it's a sexual secret. It's just that it's a secret that you keep from your spouse. You have a whole other secret that you share with this other person that you don't want to share with your spouse. You went to lunch. It was just a business lunch, but would you like your husband or wife to watch the videotape of that? The second is emotional intimacy. And this is where the betrayal really takes place, because when you get married, no matter what words or vows you use, you basically tell this person, you're going to be the number one person in my life. No matter what, you are number one. Well, when you start sharing that emotional intimacy on a deeper level with another person, it's very easy to displace your husband or wife. So one of the things that we tell people to check is, you got great news or you got bad news. Who are you going to call first, your friend or your husband or wife? And then the third component is sexual chemistry. Now, we were created sexual beings, so simply being attracted to someone is not wrong. It is simply a matter of our biology.
Wiring, yeah.
But when you have a sexual chemistry with somebody, that means you better stay away from them. You don't have a real good friendship with somebody you're sexually attracted to, because nature will take its course. So when you put all 3 of those things together, secrets, emotional intimacy with somebody else, and a sexual chemistry, you've crossed over into betrayal.
Yeah. And if you want to know if you're borderlining on a like an emotional affair, because I think that a lot of people say, well, you can certainly have friends with people of the opposite sex, and then those can go further. It's all about the secrets. Are there secrets in your relationship that you wouldn't want your husband or wife to know? And then, truly, I mean, one of the best acid tests I've ever heard was, if your husband or wife had all the facts, would they say it's betrayal? And yeah, usually they would.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm glad that you shared those 3 components, Mona, because also I had a comment about, is pornography, cheating. And so, that's why it says infidelity has so many faces, because it's how the person who feels betrayed is what they perceive it to be, and that is the part of the secrecy part, the person is speaking and doing it. So, yes, that is a form of infidelity. And I'm going to post this on my website, too. Yeah, I'm going to post this on my website so people can have these this information. And also, anyone listening, you can always contact Gary and Mona at their website, and that is www.hopeandhealing.us. hopeandhealing.us. Do you accept questions from callers that are not in your area? Okay.
Oh yeah.
And tell me,
in fact,
are you doing any workshops or anything coming up?
Yes. I was going to tell you, Hope and Healing serves primarily 3 ways. We're a network of couples that have healed from infidelity, and so we do have some facilitating couples, not a whole lot, but we have a few scattered throughout the United States, and they've all gone through a process to be authorized facilitating couples. We have a therapist on our board, and so we've tried to make it safe and legal. We are just peers. None of us are counselors or claim to be, but we can help support them in their recovery. But we serve email, phone calls, Skype. We focus on working with couples who are willing to work together. There are other resources out there if your husband or wife is unwilling to work on healing the marriage. So Hope and Healing focuses on couples that are willing to work together. We locally have 10-week groups, and then and we also have some written resources that are on the website. Gary and I have a book called Unfaithful, and you could check out the website. There's some other material resources. Also, we do weekend intensives. We just started that about 3 years ago because not everybody could go to a 10-week group where we live, right? We're in California, so what do the people in New York do? And the weekend intensive actually came from another therapist who does them, and it is a focused Friday, Saturday, Sunday retreat that focuses entirely on adultery recovery, couple to couple. We do a lot of education, normalizing, we explore tools, we deal with some communication, we answer the top questions people bring. We give couples the opportunity to bring any new questions or concerns. And it is intense, but it's amazing. People kind of slither in on Friday, and on Sunday they don't want to go home because they have found, for many of them, it's the first time that they have felt validated in what they're experiencing and have hope and have an idea of what to do next.
Yeah.
We send them home with a lot of tools. Obviously, we think the intensives are awesome, but that's because that's what we've heard from the couples being there, and we have seen the work that occurs there.
Yeah, and we really do. One of the things that's really important, and you brought this up earlier, Shaneka, about the group environment, we keep it at the group size. We intentionally keep them smaller. We keep them at around 20 people total, only because you know what happens when you get above that number of people, it kind of turns into a classroom. And then
20 couples,
yeah, 20 people. So there's only like 10, 11 couples that are in there,
including facilitators.
And that what that does is that really helps to keep the family. You know, I mean, because people are engaged, and you know, I mean, you're kind of more on a group type basis, where instead of when there's a bunch of people, like I said, it turns into a classroom, and you don't really necessarily want that. Not that there's not a lot of stuff that can be learned. It's just that the group works. That just works so well to be able to share and hope. And then, like I said earlier, you know, where people would say, I could never hear this from my husband or wife, but boy, I heard it in the group, you know, so it's really neat.
So we've been able to, fortunately, we've had some donations in the past couple of years where we've been able to take the intensives to the East Coast and other places. We were in Georgia and Michigan last year because we had facilitators there, because there's 4 of us that have to travel to put on the intensives. But it's a great team and a great ministry, and we are just so happy to be able to contribute back.
Yeah.
I would have sold my soul to have something like that when we were first going through it. So it just gives us boundless joy to be able to see that being used in a positive, healing way with other people.
And I truly believe in my spirit that you, Mona, you and Gary are truly living your purpose, living out your purpose, because it's so easy for us to give up. But I often share that the testimony is in the climb. You know, when you can go through it, that's when you really can share and really change people's lives. And I'm so thankful for you and what you're doing. And I also want to make sure I mention the book. It's Unfaithful, Hope and Healing After Infidelity. And someone can get that from the website. What about on Kindle or Amazon? Is it there?
Everywhere. It's an ebook, Amazon, anything. You know, you just go Gary and Mona Shriver, and you can look at it that way, or you can just go Unfaithful, and it's available everywhere.
I'm definitely going to add it to my bookshelf. I'm definitely going to add the book to my bookshelf. I'm going to get it, and I'm going to also recommend couples. You know, because I often get books and I read it and I share with couples. So this is definitely going to be one that I add, especially after talking to the both of you. I just
can I just jump in here with one last thought? Just one quickie thought. There are couples out there right now that might be hearing this and buying into the lie of the world. We have heard this over and over again, that infidelity is the death sentence to your marriage. I mean, that's what society would have people believe. And we know that because we hear that over and over and over again. And I have to say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it is not the death sentence to a relationship. We have seen things that you wouldn't believe how bad it got in people's lives, in couples' lives. And we've just watched God work miracles in people's lives, and they have the love, and they can have the trust, and they can have the intimacy, and it may not seem like it right now, but don't buy into that lie, because you can get through this, and with good counseling and with just that willing hearts and to be able to move forward with this thing. You can get through infidelity, and you can have all those things. And we have seen at times hundreds and hundreds of couples over the period of years that they have made it through this, and they have relationships today that they just can't believe it. I love one guy said once, he said, I would never, ever, well, he says, I would never have chosen the way that we got to where we are today, but I would never trade from where we are today for anything else in the world. Saying this after his infidelity recovery. And, I mean, that speaks just volumes to me, that people can get through this. So don't buy the lie. It's not the death sentence to your marriage.
And Hope and Healing as a team would just be honored to help support anybody through this process.
There's lots of resources on our website, free stuff that you can download, podcasts and just stuff and different interviews and things like that. And we just, it's all free. So, just check out the website, hopeandhealing.us.
Yeah, and once again, to piggyback on what you're saying, Gary, you're right. You don't have to feel like you have to separate and divorce is your answer. That may be the case for some people. That's okay. But for those who really love their spouse and want to work it out, you can, because, I don't impose my personal beliefs and values on anyone, but marriage is a covenant. It's a sacred covenant.
That's right.
Yes, it is.
And so, God, he didn't break any covenants. The covenants that he made, he did not break them.
No, he didn't.
So we can restore. We can restore and we can heal after infidelity. So I do agree with you. Please reach out to anyone in your community. If that's a therapist, I say to therapists, please go onto this website and get some wonderful resources. And also, I'm going to go back on your website and check out any upcoming workshops for 2014. So I really appreciate you for sharing that with me today.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. It's been an honor to have the opportunity to make others aware.
Yeah, and one thing too, Shaneka, you just said, if you really love your spouse and you can make this thing through, you know what, don't trust your feelings right now if you're right in the beginning of it. Because sometimes you just hate your spouse right now for what they did. Serious, for what they did to you, and you just think, I'm always going to have this hatred for them. Well, I can assure you that feelings change. Feelings change.
Yes.
We don't feel the
same.
Yeah, in life in general.
Yes.
As you progress through your life, think about the feelings that have changed in your life already to this point. So even though you hate them right now, don't hold on to that. Just believe that your heart can change. And you can have that love. Yeah.
You're right, because even relationships that have not had infidelity, the feelings have changed. So you're absolutely right.
Amen. It changes, it evolves.
We're human beings.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes. Thank you so much, Gary and Mona. And for those who are listening, you can always share the link with your friends and families. They can download it here. And go to www.hopeandhealing.us. Have a great day.
Come back next week and visit Open Up with Therapy Girl. To learn more about Shaneka or to be a guest on her show, visit therapygirl.net. Have a great day.
Hit the road with Safeway and Sunoco. Now through June 27th, earn 4 times gas reward points on participating items. Redeem your rewards at participating Sunoco stations. Use your club card for a great deal, plus 4 times gas reward points on Oscar Mayer Deli Fresh or Carving Board lunch meat, 2 for only $6. And Oreos, 2 for just $5. Fuel your trip. #because summer fun. Other restrictions and exclusions apply. Go to Safeway.com/rewards for details. Hit the road with Safeway and Sunoco. Now through June 27th, earn 4 times gas reward points on participating items. Redeem your rewards at participating Sunoco stations. Use your club card for a great deal, plus 4 times gas reward points on Oscar Mayer Deli Fresh or Carving Board lunch meat, 2 for only $6. And Oreos, 2 for just $5. Fuel your trip. #because summer fun. Other restrictions and exclusions apply. Go to Safeway.com/rewards for details.